Okay, let's just close our eyes for a moment and imagine we're in Israel. Okay, got that? Good. Because the drash is going to be about the book of Ruth. So we're going to deal with that tomorrow. Anyhow, here we are. Here's a word I learned about recently, leket, lamed kuf tet. It means a specific type of gathering, as in lilaket asabim besadeh, to gather herbs in the field, or to gather manna in the desert. And it's the name of Israel's food bank, which distributes more than 300,000 meals to needy people every week. Leleket also means gleaning, and gleaning plays a big part in the story of Ruth, which is a highlight of the Shavuot holiday, and which we will read tomorrow, today in Israel, never mind. In the book, it says, for example, it says, Vatoma Ruth HaMoaviyah El Naomi Elchana Hasadeh Ve'elakata Bashibulim. Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, I would like to go to the fields and glean among the ears of grain. In those days, leket was one of the leket was one of three divine commandments for farmers of grain at harvest time. And all of these commandments are negative commandments. Leket says, don't pick up what has fallen on the ground. Peah says, don't reap to the edge of the field. And Shechicha says, don't go back and pick up what you forgot. As it says in Vayikra, Uvekutzrechem et ktsir artzachem lo techali pe'at hasadeh liktzor, v'leket ktsircha lo telakat. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. The ani v'lagir ta'azovotam, ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am Adonai, your God. In short, I'm sorry. Dear God. Okay, in short, as the religious scholar Greg Gardner wrote, the landowner is instructed to refrain from interfering with the distribution of produce from God to the poor. So, was this charity, tzedakah, as we know it, or justice, tzedek? As you read it, on the face of it, it's clear. Poor people have a right to a share of the harvest. But did it work? Ruth, a widowed migrant alien, clearly benefited from these rules. But it's just as clear that she was an exception. Boaz, captivated by her modest ways and impressed by her kindness to Naomi, told his workers to let her work together with them, not to follow behind with the rest of the poor people. And he sent her home with even more barley. By the way, later commentaries suggested that Ruth was the daughter of the king of Moab, an idol worshiper, which makes her own devotion to Naomi and the God of Israel so remarkable. And Boaz has his own backstory. He's identified with Ibzan of Bethlehem from the Sefer Shoftim, who led the people of Israel for 7 years. And he had 60 children, all of whom had died by the time of our story. But why was he in the field that day? As we're told, he was there to make sure that the rules of Leket, Peah, and Shechicha were observed. However, we can imagine that not all the landowners were as righteous as Boaz. The life of a gleaner always hung in the balance, as Ismar Shosh writes in a commentary. The conscience of most landowners obliged them to do no more than the minimum, if that. As the rules evolved, Peah, for example, called for leaving a 60th of the field for the poor, 1/60th, as in Batul B'Shishim, our way of saying an insignificant amount. And the Mishnah also cites disputes over who got the grain that fell from the sharp side of the sickle, the gleaner or the farmer. In any case, this whole structure fell into disuse, according to the Shulchan Aruch, which says it is unlikely that any of the poor will be able to take the gleanings, and that any who did show up were likely to be idol worshippers. And yet, the basic idea of food justice or charity, whichever it is, or both, has not been forgotten. And I came across it in action at kibbutzim and moshavim near Gaza earlier this year, where an organization called Leket Israel, has been sending thousands of volunteers to help the farmers who basically lost their workforce after the October 7th attacks. It started as a food bank when an American Oleh realized that a lot of prepared food was going to waste from weddings and bar mitzvahs in Israel, at a time when many Israelis were finding it hard to feed their families. He decided to do something about it, and in the 20 years that followed, many thousands of meals have gone out to needy families every week. And Leket Yisrael also helped farmers donate crops that couldn't be sold for whatever reason. So now, this is where Leket would probably like me to make a pitch for donations, but I won't. Instead, I'll just say, I'll make a different pitch. I'll say that if you can figure out a way to get there, Leket is a great way to help Israel in a difficult time for a day or a week or as much as you can. In a way, it's Zionism in action, and the people there really appreciate it. These farmers used to rely on workers from Gaza, and that's over. And Thai workers were also a key resource, but most of them were called home after the attacks when some were killed or kidnapped. Anyhow, this is what it's like. You get up early, and it can be hard work on a hot day, but a lot of fun. You meet Israelis and foreigners of all ages, all kinds of people from all over. When I was there for a few months earlier this year, we picked oranges, lemons, pomelos, grapefruit, tomatoes, and avocados, and got down on the dirt to harvest lettuce and chard. New people show up every day, and Leket takes you to the fields in tourist buses that would otherwise sit idle, and tour guides come along. Their income has also dried up, to make sure everything goes well. And you get home in time for coffee in the afternoon. That's my pitch.